Let's discuss 6 important terms in UPSC answer writing. Comment, critically comment. Describe, critically describe. Now what is the difference when you have this word critically? All the features of the first one, let's say comment or describe, are there, but there are some additional things that you must take into account. And then we'll also talk about if the question says narrate or enumerate. Now based on the kind of subject you are appearing for, the optional or the GS, we do have certain variations in the formation of the questions, and that's what we would come to today. Now when it is comment, you have to bring in the key aspects of everything, right? So that's very basic thing. But when it is critically comment, on top of this key aspects, you have to include the pros and the cons, the relevant data that can be brought for the question. It could be in the form of figures, it could be in the form of statistics, it could be in the form of data, it could be in the form of facts. But some way you have to substantiate your answer to critically comment. You can actually critically comment or bring down the pros and the cons only when you have solid base information based on which you can give your findings. The next is describe versus critically describe. Now describe is explaining a topic. Now this is little different from elucidate. When you were elucidating, you were actually bringing or dividing the whole content into factors. Let's say when we talked about monsoon in the previous class, we said that you have the primary factors, the secondary factors, then under primary factors what could be the possible factors, under secondary factors what could be the possible factors. When you are describing, you are explaining the whole of the topic. It could be either in the form of breaking down into points or explaining them as a gist. But the idea is the overview, the overall information of the concept must be given. Now when you are asked to critically describe, you have to bring in your judgment, and that judgment should be again an unbiased judgment, free of any extremities. There should not be any extremities in the judgment that you are explaining. So no extremities. Explain your opinion, and you should not be a staunch follower of that side, right? Even if you are, your language should be subtle, it should be mild, and it should not be a extreme critical form. When we say critical, it does not typically denote a negative connotation, right? Critically does not mean you have to explain only the negatives or the loopholes. That's very important to note. Critical means you have to judge it, give your judgment, and then this could be a positive side, this could be a negative side. For example, I say Gati Shakti is one of the very important schemes, and you have to write a note on Gati Shakti. You have to critically describe this. Now you have described all the pillars of Gati Shakti, and then you are talking about some important aspect, and you believe that there is not much money or not much inflow into this program. Now rather than putting that in very strong words, you have to take your language onto the other side and explain that what could be the implications if this scheme is not properly implemented, right? Then two another terms, enumerate and narrate. Now narrate is usually used for theoretical papers. When you have, let's say, your literature papers, you use narrate. Narrate is also used for history, art and culture as some of the subjects. Why cultures evolved, why certain wars took place, how was India's freedom struggle that took place. So narrating is more of storytelling, and it's in the paragraph form. You don't write point-wise answers here. Very important. There is no need to bring in diagrams, flowcharts under a question on narrate. When the question is on enumerate, you have to bring in certain statistical support for your answer. Bringing the answer into points is one thing that you must keep into mind. The other important thing is statistical data should be there, which should be analyzed and interpreted. So whenever you have certain statistics, what is required is analysis of that statistics, interpretation of those statistics. For example, I talk about NDMA guidelines. Now NDMA guidelines, let's say they are there for urban flood management or urban flooding. Now rather than just enumerating that yes, these are the important things that have been mentioned in the guidelines under disaster management, what you must bring in is, let's say if I'm talking about urban flooding, what are the countries which are most vulnerable or facing these issues severely, what those countries are doing to rectify it. If you can bring certain statistical data to bring in for your answer, or certain case studies, the efforts those nations have been doing. For example, if we talk about BMC or Bangalore, what are the efforts they are doing to stop the problem of urban flooding. Similarly, if this issue has been seen in another developed nations or another developing nations, what are the strategies they are using to solve this issue, should be part of enumeration. So enumerate and narrate are little different things. Be very particular when you are writing your answers regarding those. And definitely, answer writing is something that comes with practice. The more you practice, the better perfection you get. And therefore, it's really important to do a self-evaluation of your answer, have a sound knowledge before you start writing about any topic. And that's one of the ways through which answer writing can be strengthened. Next week, we'll meet again with some important things that you must keep in mind for your UPSC answer writing. Thanks for joining in today.